What's going on, Headliner Nation? Kyle back with the Fantasy Headliners, and we've got some more breaking news for you. As really one of the first fantasy relevant names for 2020 has decided to opt out for the season, and that is Damien Williams of the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, maybe it's not because you were targeting him in your fantasy football drafts, but his teammate Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a guy that was talked about a lot this offseason. He's one of those rookies that you want to invest in, but you're just not 100% sure what's going to happen with him. But now we get a little bit more of a clear picture of what could happen with CEH this season. Now, I will preface this by telling you that in some of our videos earlier in the offseason, we said Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a guy that we were going to pass on. I do not think that that is the case anymore, and let's talk about why. So, for last season, Damien Williams' 2019 stats overall was, underwhelming. Not great, nothing to write home about. 111 rushing attempts, 498 rushing yards, 37 targets, 30 receptions, 213 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns. Now, the Chiefs did decide to bring in LaShawn McCoy at one point, so Damien Williams really got hurt because of that as well. Both of them ended up being off and on injured, but it was towards the end of the season that Damien Williams really broke out and put together the type of stats that a lot of fantasy owners drafted him for last season. Now, we were not on Damien Williams last season. We were worried about him, but towards the end of the season, he finally showed us some of what we thought could potentially happen. And that was in weeks 16 and 17 plus the playoffs. That was 5 games. And during that time, he averaged just over 14 attempts a game, 77 rushing yards, 6 targets, 3.6 receptions, 30 receiving yards, and 1.8 touchdowns per game. When they got towards the end of the season and when they got into the playoffs, Damien Williams was the guy. He was out on the field. He was taking the majority of the snaps. We weren't seeing any type of a timeshare. They were throwing to him. They were giving the ball on the ground. And they were doing a lot of what people really hoped they would do with Clyde Edwards-Helaire when he was drafted. Now, the reason that we were concerned about it was because how well Damien Williams performed at the end of the season. A short offseason for these rookies. They're not going to get any time in preseason now with no preseason, so they're not going to get any of that game action. So we were really worried saying, hey, Damien Williams is probably going to still see quite a bit of work. This is more than likely going to be a 50-50 split. But at this point, there's nobody else on the roster that really warrants a 50-50 split with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, except maybe to start the season. And let me explain a little bit more on that. So the running backs currently on the roster, obviously CEH, which we've talked about. Don't forget Darwin Thompson. He was the guy that we liked last offseason that we thought could cut into some Damien Williams time, but he didn't. He is a gifted running back, though, okay? So keep an eye out on that. Elijah McGuire coming over free agency. They have Darrell Williams there still. Darrell Williams has shown some moves, okay, in some little specks of playing time. He's shown to be a decent fill-in, but again, he's not CEH. And then they added DeAndre Washington, and that is the one that I am thinking could end up hurting CEH just a little bit to start. What I am expecting to happen to start the season is that we will see CEH as the starting running back, but DeAndre Washington is going to be the pass-catching back. I think that what we'll see is Clyde Edwards-Helaire split with maybe Darwin Thompson or Darrell Williams, those touches on the ground to start until CEH really gets up to speed, picks up the playbook, gets more comfortable. So maybe the first 4 or 5 weeks we see CEH on and off the field a little bit, but he gets a majority of the touches on the ground supplemented with Thompson or Williams, and then DeAndre Washington is the guy that they really use for pass catching work. And then as the season goes on and progresses, at that point, that is when CEH starts taking more and more and more of the workload until the end of the season when he becomes really the workhorse back for Kansas City, and he is the guy that we lean on at that point. So, to start off with, if you're going to get Clyde Edwards-Helaire, more than likely you are going to have to spend a second round pick right this instant, okay? It could get even higher as this offseason progresses. If we see some bigger names opt out, whatever it may be, injuries happen, CEH could end up going higher, higher, and higher. But if you haven't paid a whole lot of attention this offseason, you don't know a lot about Clyde Edwards-Helaire other than just some of the talk you've seen, don't forget his last season there at LSU. 15 games, 215 attempts, 1,414 rushing yards last year. He did have 55 receptions, 453 receiving yards, 18 total touchdowns. So the guy is a monster. The guy is a beast. He's a guy that we talked about maybe being kind of a dark horse during that draft process. And then when we were streaming the night of the first round, if you saw him come off the board while you were watching with us, Jake got super excited about it. I like the pick as well. We do think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be a beast for the Kansas City Chiefs. As of right now, at this moment, his ADP holds him at the running back 17. You can get him at the end to the mid to the end of the third round. For me right now, I'm going to bump him up to my running back 14 to start. So you're going to have to probably use a pick at the end of the second round to get him in PPR leagues. A little bit later, possibly just early at third, potentially in half PPR, full PPR. I highly doubt he makes it until the third round moving forward. I think a lot of fantasy owners overall are going to jump the gun and start drafting Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the beginning of the second, maybe late first round at some point. We might see him go late first round in some drafts. I'm not going to put him over Drake, Eckler, Sanders. I'm not going to put him over any of those guys as of yet. And of course, those top tier running backs in the first round, I'm not putting him over them either because, again, we could still see a little bit of a slow start. The Kansas City Chiefs could slowly work him in while using those other guys. Not because they're more talented, not because they're better than CEH, but just because, again, we have an offseason where resources are a little bit more on the limited side. And not only that, but he's not going to get a whole lot of time on the field with no preseason either. That's why I'm saying just be cautious with it. You might get super excited, but some of those veterans that we've seen put together good numbers so far, I wouldn't be willing to draft Edwards-Helaire over them. Now, a guy that I really like this offseason, Todd Gurley, I will take him over a Todd Gurley or a Leonard Fournette. Guys like that. So again, more than likely to get CEH, you're going to have to spend a mid-second to late second pick. That's going to seem expensive when the season gets started because, like I said, you might get some up and down performances from him to start. You might not get those high-end performances from him to start. He might only be about a running back 2 to begin the season. But as the season progresses, then he's a guy that gets worked into the game plan a little bit more, starts to see more volume on the field. At that point, becomes an every week locked and loaded running back 1. So maybe if you're not able to get a hold of him in the drafts because his ADP is just a little too spicy for you right now, be targeting him after the first 2 to 3 weeks of the season, and you hopefully can get him at a little bit of a discount because that schedule to begin the season for the Chiefs also could cause some issues for him. So there you go. Headliner Nation, again, breaking the news for you. Just came out a little bit ago that Damien Williams will be opting out of the season. That's big news for Clyde Edwards-Helaire and what he could potentially do this season. Do me a favor. In the comments down below, let me know, where would you take Clyde Edwards-Helaire? What pick, what round are you thinking you're okay with taking him? Where do you think he finishes the season overall? Leave us a comment down below and let us know. Also, hit the like button on the video if you like and appreciate the content. And more importantly, if you're new to the Fantasy Headliners, hit that subscribe button and become a part of Headliner Nation today on our road to 100,000 subscribers. Appreciate you all tuning into this quick video breaking the news on Damien Williams for you. We'll catch you on the next episode. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a good one.